The poisoned paw of the forest was thick and dark, with towering trees and creeping vines that twisted their way through the underbrush. The air was heavy with the scent of moss and wet earth, and the silence felt strange, almost unnatural. Elias, a human healer, moved quietly through the dense forest, his boots barely making a sound against the forest floor. He had been walking for hours, hoping to find something useful: herbs, medicine, or maybe even food. But then he heard it, a low growl that echoed through the trees. Elias stopped in his tracks, his heart pounding. He wasn't alone. He wasn't afraid. He had faced dangerous creatures before, but something about the growl felt different. It was not a predator hunting its prey. It sounded like a warning, a creature in pain. Carefully, he crept toward the sound, his hand resting on the young hilt of his knife, just in case. His breath was steady as he pushed aside branches and vines, moving closer to the source of the noise. There, in a small clearing, he saw her dot an alien creature, unlike any he had ever encountered. She was lying on the ground, her large, golden eyes wide with fear and pain. Her body was sleek, covered in scales that shimmered faintly in the dappled light. But it was her paw that caught his attention. It was swollen, bleeding, and the cause was clear. An arrow, tipped with something poisonous, was lodged deep in the center of her paw. Elias felt his chest tighten. He knew the poison. It was a rare deadly toxin that could kill in minutes if not treated. He had read about it in his medical studies, but he had never seen it in person. And now, here it was, coursing through the alien's blood, making her tremble with every breath. She growled again, more softly this time, her eyes flickering toward him. Elias knelt down, his hands shaking slightly as he examined her injury. The arrow had pierced deep, but the poison had not yet fully spread throughout her body. There was still a chance. He took a deep breath. "I can help you," he said quietly, his voice calm and steady. The creature didn't respond, but Elias could see the faint flicker of hope in her eyes. His mind raced. He had to act quickly. The poison was fast-acting, but there was a way to stop it. He had to remove the arrow, but doing so would risk making the poison spread faster. "Stay still," he whispered to her, though he wasn't sure she understood. He carefully set his medical kit down beside him, his hands moving quickly as he prepared to remove the arrow. The alien hissed, her body stiffening. As he gently touched the wound, Elias froze. Her eyes locked onto his, and for a moment it felt like time itself had stopped. There was a strange connection between them, an unspoken understanding. She was in agony, but she trusted him. Slowly, with as much care as he could muster, Elias began the delicate task of pulling the arrow free. The alien flinched, but she didn't attack. She didn't try to run. Elias could feel her pain, but there was something else, something deeper. It was a strange mix of fear and gratitude, a silent plea for survival. The arrow came out with a sickening tug, and immediately Elias could see the poison beginning to spread. He knew he had little time left. He quickly poured a vial of antidote onto the wound, his hands moving faster now, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. The alien's body stiffened, and she let out a pained growl, but Elias continued to work, never looking away from the injury. He applied the antidote with precision, hoping it would work in time. Her body began to relax slowly, her breathing steadying, though she remained on edge. Elias watched as the poison slowly began to lose its grip on her. The swelling in her paw started to go down, and her eyes, those beautiful, golden eyes, flickered as if seeing him for the first time. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the silence between them thick with the weight of what had just happened. Elias could feel the exhaustion in his limbs, but he didn't look away. The alien's gaze held something he couldn't quite place. Was it gratitude? Respect? Or maybe something deeper? The alien shifted, her body moving, carefully as she rose to her feet. Her paw, now free of poison, moved with more ease, though she still limped slightly. She took a cautious step back, keeping her eyes on him, but Elias saw no sign of aggression. "I saved you," Elias said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're safe now." For a long moment, there was nothing but the sound of their breathing and the wind rustling through the trees. Then the alien stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Her eyes never left his, and Elias held his breath, unsure of what would happen next. Finally she spoke, her voice soft, but clear. "You saved me, and I will never forget it." The words hung in the air like a promise. Elias could feel his heart pounding in his chest, but he didn't look away. In that moment, he knew that this was just the beginning of something he couldn't yet understand. The air felt thick with unspoken words as the alien stared at Elias, her gaze unwavering. She had been saved, but now what? What did she owe him? And what was this strange feeling that stirred inside her? The need to protect him, the debt she felt she owed. Elias was still crouched on the ground, his hands bloodied from the treatment. He looked up, meeting her golden eyes. She wasn't backing away. Instead, she stood tall and proud, almost regal, despite her limp. For the first time, Elias saw the true weight of her presence. This wasn't just an injured creature, this was someone important, someone who had seen things he couldn't imagine. "You're stronger than I thought," Elias said quietly, wiping the sweat from his brow. The alien's eyes flickered with something resembling a smile, though it was brief and subtle. "I am more than what you see," she replied, her voice deeper now, with a hint of authority. "But I owe you a debt, human. A debt I will repay." Elias stood, his legs sore from kneeling, and stretched out his hand. He wasn't sure if he was ready for whatever this meant, but something told him that turning away now wouldn't be wise. Not after what had just happened. "I didn't do it for a reward," Elias said, his voice steady, though there was a faint tremor beneath it. He didn't know why he was saying that. Maybe he wanted to avoid the inevitable. Or maybe he was just trying to be humble, as he always had been. But deep down, he knew that wasn't entirely true. He wanted something. He wanted to know what she was going to do next. The alien stepped closer, her steps silent despite her size. She towered over him, yet her presence felt strangely calming. Her golden eyes seemed to be reading him, as if she could see right through him. She sniffed the air, almost like she was studying the scent of the forest. Then she locked eyes with him again. "You are not like others. You do not fear me," she said, almost to herself. "And yet you helped me." Elias frowned. He wasn't sure what to say to that. Fear? He wasn't afraid. But there was something different about her. She wasn't like the other creatures he had healed. There was a depth to her, a layer of complexity that tugged at him. "I don't fear what's wounded," Elias answered softly, feeling the weight of her gaze upon him. The alien studied him for a long moment, then her eyes shifted to the horizon, where the light was beginning to fade. "The war is coming," she said, her voice grave. "And you have made an enemy today, but you have also made an ally." Her words were cryptic, heavy with meaning that Elias couldn't quite grasp. What war? Who was she fighting? And why did she feel the need to say ally to a stranger she had only just met? "An ally?" Elias repeated, his voice low. "Why would you need me?" "I do not need you, human," she said, a slight edge to her tone. "But you will need me. I am the last of my kind, and the galaxy will soon learn what happens when you play with fire." The cryptic warning sent a chill down Elias's spine. There was something dark in her words, something he couldn't ignore. His curiosity burned, but so did his fear. What was she really asking of him? And why had she appeared in his life, seemingly at random? The alien took a step back, as if sensing his hesitation. You may not understand now, but you will, soon enough. Before Elias could respond, she turned, her movements swift and graceful. Her injured paw, though still slightly limp, carried her with an almost predatory ease. She glanced back at him once more. Stay close, human. This is not over. Her eyes were like fire fierce, unyielding, and full of hidden promise. Elias stood still for a moment, watching her retreat into the shadows. He wasn't sure what had just happened, but one thing was certain: his life was never going to be the same. He had just made a choice, whether he liked it or not. Asterisk. The price of survival. Elias didn't sleep that night. The words of the alien lingered in his mind, echoing through the darkness. The war is coming. He kept replaying them, trying to make sense of what he had just become a part of. But as the moon rose high in the sky, the reality of the situation began to settle in. He wasn't just a healer anymore. He had become a pawn in a much larger game, and for some reason, he couldn't shake the feeling that it was a game he hadn't even begun to understand. The alien had warned him. She had said the galaxy would soon learn the consequences of their actions. What did that mean? Who was she, really? Before he could spiral further into the chaos of his thoughts, a sharp, distant sound broke the silence of the night. A cry, raw and filled with agony. Elias' heart raced. He was still a healer at his core, and instinct took over. He grabbed his bag and rushed into the woods, following the sound. His thoughts of the alien faded for a moment as the desperate cry echoed again, but this time it was closer. The forest was alive with sound, branches scraping against each other in the wind. The air was colder now, and the darkness seemed to press in from all sides. Elias felt the weight of the night as he pushed through the thick underbrush. His breath came faster as he followed the sound, desperate to help, to make a difference. He found her just beyond the trees, a creature, no longer a proud figure of strength, but a broken figure of pain. The alien who had once stood tall was now lying on the ground, her body twitching in agony. Her paw, once healed, was now bleeding again, this time far worse. Elias rushed to her side, his heart racing. What happened? He asked, but his voice faltered when he saw her face. Her golden eyes were wide, filled with terror as she looked up at him. I thought I could outrun it, she whispered, her voice hoarse, her breath ragged. But I was wrong. It's coming. It's already here. Elias's mind raced. It? What was she talking about? I don't have much time, she continued, her voice barely audible. You were right to help me. But now, you must help me survive. The enemy will not stop. They will hunt me. And you. He knelt beside her, taking her paw in his hands. The bleeding was worse now, and the poison was spreading. But this was different. The toxin was more dangerous, more complex. He'd never seen anything like it. He could feel the strength in her body fading, the warmth leaving her skin. Her once vibrant golden eyes were dimming. I'm not ready to die, she whispered, her voice trembling. Elias's heart pounded in his chest as he worked quickly, trying to keep her stable, but he could feel the desperation building. This wasn't just about survival. It was about something much larger. And in that moment, he realized he was caught up in something far beyond his control. He wasn't just helping her now. He was protecting the last of her kind. You will survive, Elias said, his voice more confident than he felt. I promise you, I won't let you die. Her eyes softened, a flicker of trust crossing her face. She reached out weakly, her trembling hand brushing against his. You've already saved me once, but this time it's more than just healing. You must protect me, and in doing so, Protect everything that is left of my people." Elias's stomach churned with confusion. He had no idea what she meant by that, but it didn't matter. He was already too far in. The moment he had removed the arrow from her paw, he had sealed his fate. As he applied more pressure to her wound, he could feel her breath slowing, becoming shallow. He looked around, his mind frantic. He couldn't let her die. He just couldn't. Not like this. But with every second, he realized more and more that her survival wasn't just about saving her. It was about saving what she represented. She wasn't just an alien he had healed. She was the key to something larger. "You have to tell me what's going on," Elias said, his voice growing more desperate. "What's happening? What's chasing you?" The alien, despite her weakening state, smiled faintly. "You'll know soon enough. The war is upon us. And you are the one who will change everything." Elias didn't understand, but there was no time to dwell on it. The sound of movement in the distance grew louder, shuffling, hissing, something coming closer. "They've found us," the alien whispered, her voice barely audible. Elias's eyes widened. He had no weapon, no backup. He was alone in the woods with an alien who had just revealed that her people were at war, and that he had somehow become an unwilling participant. His pulse raced, and every instinct told him to run. But he couldn't leave her. Not now. In that moment, Elias made a choice. He would fight. He didn't know what was out there, or what was coming for them. But if he was going to survive, he would fight by her side. Before he could make a plan, the forest erupted with sound. The ground shook as massive figures emerged from the trees, creatures, as dark as the night, their eyes glowing with malice. Their forms were twisted and alien, like something born of nightmares. They were coming for her, and Elias would not let them have her. Asterisk, a bond forged in fire. The creatures emerged from the trees with terrifying speed, their forms dark and ominous in the moonlight. Elias could feel the ground tremble beneath their weight, and his heart raced as he instinctively moved to shield the alien. The woods, once peaceful, were now alive with the sound of hissing breath and rustling leaves. The air thick with danger. They were surrounded. The alien beside him was barely conscious, her breathing shallow. Elias could feel the fear radiating from her, but there was something else in her eyes, a glimmer of fierce determination. She wasn't just afraid of these creatures. She was calculating, planning her next move. But Elias knew that she was weakened, and she needed him as much as he needed her. The first of the creatures lunged at them, its claws sharp and gleaming. Elias didn't hesitate. He grabbed a nearby branch, twisting it in his hands, the adrenaline surging through his veins. The creature struck with deadly precision, but Elias was quick. He swung the branch, catching the creature across the face with a sickening crack. It reeled back, howling in pain, but it wasn't enough. More were coming. The alien growled low in her throat, her eyes flashing with a predatory gleam as she rose to her feet, her injury momentarily forgotten. She moved faster than Elias could. Track, her limbs agile and graceful as she struck with deadly precision. Her claws, still stained with the poison from earlier, slashed through the air, taking down the first creature in a blur of movement. "Stay close," she snarled, her voice cold but commanding. She was no longer the helpless creature from earlier. She was a warrior, fierce and unyielding, and Elias could see the fire in her eyes. She was protecting him now. Elias didn't have time to process the change. He was focused on the fight. As another creature lunged at him, he sidestepped, using the branch to block its attack. His heart pounded in his chest, and for the first time, he felt a surge of anger, not just at the creatures, but at himself. He wasn't ready for this fight. He wasn't prepared for what had just been thrust upon him, but he wouldn't back down. Not when someone's life was at stake. Not when he had already crossed the line into this chaotic world of war. The alien didn't wait for him to catch up. She was already charging at the next creature, her speed and strength unmatched. Elias followed, his hands shaking as he swung the branch again, hitting one of the creatures square in the chest. It stumbled backward, but didn't fall. They were relentless like the war that was sweeping through the galaxy, a war that Elias had unwittingly become a part of. The alien turned to him, her face hard, her expression filled with something Elias couldn't read. "Keep up," she snapped. "If you want to survive, fight like you mean it." The words stung, but they were true. Elias had no choice but to push his fear aside. There was no time for hesitation. These creatures were here to kill, and he wasn't about to let them take the alien, or him, without a fight. For a moment, everything blurred into chaos. The creatures closed in, their eyes glowing like burning coals, their claws slicing through the air with terrifying precision. Elias swung wildly, adrenaline fueling his every move. The alien's movements were like poetry, every strike, every kill, precise and powerful. She was unstoppable. But then, as the last creature fell, something changed. The forest was still. The only sound was the ragged breathing of Elias and the alien. His chest heaved, his limbs trembling from exhaustion. But they were alive. The alien turned to him, her golden eyes narrowing. For the first time, she looked at him as if she saw him for who he truly was, someone who had fought beside her, who had proven himself. She was no longer just a mysterious figure in his life. She was a partner, an ally, and Elias realized someone he had begun to care for. "You fought well," she said, her voice softer now, a strange respect in her words. But there was still a coldness to her demeanor, a distance. Elias couldn't tell if it was from the battle or something else, something deeper that still separated them. Elias didn't respond right away. His mind was still spinning, still trying to catch up with the events of the past few hours. He had healed her, fought beside her, and now they were in a battle neither of them had chosen. The galaxy was no longer a place of quiet healing for Elias. It was a place of war, of survival, and the only way out was to keep moving forward. The alien looked at him, her expression unreadable. "They won't stop." "You'll have to decide, Elias," she said. "Are you with me, or will you turn your back now?" Elias stared at her, his heart pounding. The question she asked was simple, yet the answer was anything but. He had no idea what was truly at stake here. He didn't know her full story, the weight of her past, or the war that loomed over them. But one thing was clear. He was already too deep, too involved. "I'm with you," Elias said, his voice steady, though the words felt foreign on his tongue. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about something else. Something he couldn't yet define. The alien nodded, her expression softening just slightly. "Then come. The next battle waits for no one." Elias followed her into the shadows, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. This was no longer just about healing. It was about joining the fight, and whatever came next, he would face it by her side. The ultimate decision. The night passed in a blur of exhaustion. Elias hardly remembered walking through the dense forest, following the alien as she led him deeper into unknown territory. The world around him seemed to pulse with an eerie, unnatural energy. The stars overhead were distant, cold, and unreachable, as if the galaxy itself was watching them, waiting for something. Elias couldn't shake the feeling that he had just stepped into a much larger story, one that had been unfolding long before he had ever entered the picture. They reached a hidden clearing, a place Elias had never seen in the entire forest. The trees arched high above, their trunks twisted in unnatural shapes, and the ground was covered in a thick layer of dark moss. In the center of the clearing, a stone structure stood ruined, ancient, and weathered by time. The air here was heavy, thick with power, and Elias couldn't help but feel a strange sense of awe. It was like stepping into the heart of something that had long been forgotten. The alien stopped in front of the stone structure, her golden eyes scanning the surroundings as if expecting danger. She turned to Elias, her gaze steady, yet distant. "This is where it began," she said quietly, her voice tinged with regret. "This is the last place I ever thought I would return to. But I have no choice." Elias looked at the ruins, the stones now covered in vines and moss. It seemed so out of place. Here, in the heart of a peaceful forest, was a monument to Po. War. He could feel the weight of her words, the deep sorrow that lingered in her voice. "Who did this?" Elias asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What happened here?" The alien's gaze darkened, her eyes distant as if she were reliving something painful. "This was once a sanctuary, a place where my people sought peace. But peace doesn't last in a galaxy like ours." Her voice dropped to a low growl as she turned her back to the ruins. "The very ones who taught us how to fight are the same. Ones who destroyed this world. The same ones who will come for us again if we do not act." Elias felt the heaviness of her words settle into his chest. He understood now. The alien wasn't just any creature. She wasn't just fighting for survival. She was fighting for her entire species, her entire way of life. She was carrying the weight of a war that seemed endless. "You want me to help you," Elias said, his voice clear, but the uncertainty still lingered. "But I don't know how. I'm just a healer. I don't belong here." She turned sharply to face him, her eyes burning with intensity. "You are here because you chose to be. You saved me. You fought for me. You are already a part of this war, whether you like it or not." Elias swallowed hard, his heart racing. The weight of the decision was suffocating. He had never asked for this. He had never wanted to be a part of a galactic conflict, yet here he was, standing in the middle of it. But despite the fear that gnawed at him, there was something inside him, a fire that refused to let him back down. He had already saved her. He had already fought beside her. And with each passing moment, it became clear that there was no turning back. "Then what do we do?" Elias asked, his voice steady. "What's the next step?" The alien stepped forward, her movements fluid and purposeful. She placed a hand on the stone, and for a moment, Elias saw something flicker in her eyes, a deep sadness, but also a flicker of hope. "We fight," she said, her voice low but filled with a strange strength. "But not just for survival. We fight to reclaim what was lost. We fight to make sure that no one else suffers as we have. We fight for the future." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Elias felt them settle in his bones. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. The sky above flickered with strange, unnatural light. Elias's heart skipped a beat as he turned to see a dark shape moving in the distance. It was unmistakable. The enemy was here. The alien's eyes narrowed, her expression hardening. "They've come earlier than expected. This is it, Elias. This is where the real battle begins." Elias's mind raced. He had no plan. He had no weapons. He had no idea how to fight an enemy like this. But he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let her face this alone. "I'm with you," he said firmly, his voice unwavering despite the fear that surged inside him. "I don't know what's ahead, but I'm with you." The alien looked at him, her eyes softening for the briefest moment, but only for a second. "Then we fight together." As the enemy closed in, Elias felt a strange calmness take over him. This wasn't about survival anymore. This wasn't about fear. This was about something deeper, something that had been ignited when he first healed, for something that had been slowly building ever since. A bond that would shape their fates. And no matter what happened next, Elias knew he would stand by her side. whatever the cost. Asterisk, a debt paid in blood. The ground shook violently beneath Elias's feet, sending vibrations through his legs. His pulse raced as his eyes locked onto the shadowy figures that had emerged from the tree line. They moved swiftly, too swiftly for Elias to react in time. Their dark forms were like predators, sleek and terrifying, with glowing eyes that pierced the night. The alien beside him stood, tall, her body tense, her golden eyes narrowing. She had transformed in the span of a few hours from the injured creature he had saved to a battle-hardened warrior. And now, standing beside her, Elias felt a strange connection to the fierceness within her. This fight, he realized, wasn't just about survival anymore. It was a test of loyalty, trust, and something deeper than either of them could explain. "They're here," the alien whispered. "It's time." Elias gripped the branch tightly in his hands, his fingers stiff from the pressure. He wasn't a warrior, but he would fight. He would fight for her, for the bond they had forged, and for the promise of something greater than himself. His heart thundered in his chest as the first of the enemy reached the clearing. The creatures were more terrifying up close. They were larger than Elias had anticipated, muscular, and covered in dark, leathery armor. Their faces were twisted, with jagged fangs and black, soulless eyes that radiated malice. But there was something else in their presence, a strange energy, like a force field surrounding them. Elias could feel it pressing down on him, making it harder to breathe. The alien moved first. She darted forward with lightning speed, her claws flashing in the dim light as she struck the nearest creature with deadly precision. It fell with a screech, but more were coming, too many to fight head-on. Elias's thoughts raced. There had to be a way to defeat them. They were strong, but were they unbeatable? A hiss broke through his thoughts. He turned just in time to see a second creature lunging at him. It was too fast. There was no time to react. But then, out of nowhere, the alien was there, her claws slashing through the air. The creature was thrown backward, its body crumpling to the ground with a sickening thud. "You're not alone, human," she said, her voice rough from the effort, but filled with determination. She turned to him, her golden eyes fierce. "Remember that?" Elias nodded, his chest tightening. He wasn't alone. She had said it before, but now, as the battle raged around him, he understood its true meaning. He wasn't just fighting beside her. He was part of her fight. A fight that would determine not just their survival, but the survival of everything she represented. The enemy pressed on, a seemingly endless wave of creatures that only grew stronger with each passing moment. Elias swung his branch with every ounce of strength he had, connecting with the creature's head and knocking it off balance. It hissed in rage, turning its sights on him. But the alien was already there, her claws gleaming with deadly intent. She ripped through its chest with an effortless strike, ending its life in an instant. But for every creature that fell, another seemed to take its place. They were relentless. And just when Elias thought he couldn't fight any longer, he heard a distant roar, a sound that shook the ground beneath them. Something bigger was coming. "Stay close," the alien shouted, her voice strained but urgent. She grabbed his arm, pulling him back toward the stone structure. "This isn't over yet." They retreated into the ruins, the alien guiding Elias with quick, practiced movements. Behind them, the enemy continued their assault, but Elias could feel the shift in the air. The creatures weren't just hunting them. They were after something bigger, something more important than either of them. The alien pushed Elias behind a large stone column, her eyes scanning the battlefield. "They've already lost. They don't know it yet, but they're done." Elias couldn't understand. The enemy was overwhelming. How could they be done? She turned to face him, her expression unwavering. "I told you we would fight for the future. This is where it begins." Suddenly, the ground trembled again, this time more violently, shaking the entire clearing. A roar echoed through the trees, this time unmistakably different. It was deeper, more primal, and it carried with it an unmistakable promise of destruction. And then, emerging from the shadows, it appeared, a creature unlike anything Elias had ever seen, larger than a house, covered in spiked, thick armor, and with eyes that glowed like molten fire. Its body was a mass of muscle, and it moved with terrifying precision, its massive claws ripping through the earth with each step. Elias felt his breath catching his throat. It was the leader of the enemy forces, the one that would decide everything. The alien beside him didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, her posture regal and defiant. "This is where it ends," she said, her voice calm but filled with a fury that Elias hadn't seen before. "For my people, for you, for everything." Elias watched, awestruck, as the alien raised her hand toward the massive creature. For a moment, everything went silent. The battle paused. The air seemed to thicken, as if time itself was holding its breath. Then, with a single movement, the alien charged. Her claws extended, and her body became a blur of motion. The leader of the enemy roared, swinging its massive claws toward her, but she was faster. With a scream that echoed through the forest, she launched herself at the creature, her body colliding with its thick armor. The ground beneath Elias's feet shook as the two battled. Elias could barely keep up with the speed of the fight strikes, dodges and blows so powerful they left the earth cracked and splintered. He wanted to help, but there was nothing he could do. This was beyond him. This was her fight, and she was fighting for them both. With a final devastating strike, the alien pierced the creature's heart. The massive form collapsed, and the ground seemed to sigh in relief. Silence settled over the battlefield. The alien stood tall, breathing heavily, her golden eyes burning with intensity. Her body was covered in blood, but her expression was one of fierce triumph. "It's done," she said, turning to face Elias, her voice quiet but filled with strength. "You've fought beside me, and together we've paid the price in blood." Elias stood in awe, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no words, no way to process what had just happened. But one thing was clear: his life had changed forever. The war was far from over, but he had crossed a threshold. And whatever came next, he would face it by her side. Asterisk.